Here we go with Homer Willard. Listen, what I'm doing is not Homerism. It's the opposite. I want to take... thank you. This is not Homerism. It's Margism.
He's my special little guy.
I would like to take the emotion out of this. Most of what I've heard all week, whether it be radio, whether it be listeners, no matter what, most of what I've heard all week long is emotion-filled. And I get it. This is an emotional matchup for the players, for the fans. I understand what Debo has done. We haven't loved all of that. Whatever. I don't think words are going to matter when we get to this whole thing, and that's kind of what I'm getting at. Remove the emotion and take a look at what normal indicators are of who's good and how good and et cetera, et cetera. And the Philadelphia Eagles are a better version of last year's Vikings, which is to say they are very good. They are dangerous. They are talented. They're at home. They might win. That all plays. However, they shouldn't win. They're an underdog for a reason. And the reason is because the 49ers are more talented and have been more effective more often this year than the Eagles have. Now, the Eagles, maybe you could argue, are the more effective team in the fourth quarter when they're trailing. I would argue that the object of the game is to stop trailing so much in the fourth quarter because that luck will run out, just like it did on the Vikings when it was time for them to play a real game that really mattered last year.
Yeah.
They got crushed in their own building by an incredibly mediocre team. So nothing is absolute and nothing is ever certain. But if you want to play trends, you want to look at indicators, you want to look at the way things are likely to go, the 49ers are a markedly better team than the Philadelphia Eagles. That's why they're a 3-point favorite on the road. Doesn't mean it'll work, but that's the deal.
Your comp to the Vikings in terms of the Eagles being flimsy.
Again, I said a much better version of.
Well, to even use them as a comp is, I think, offensive and inflammatory in many ways. And, you know, you're talking about
so?
They won the NFC last year, and they're largely the same team. And, yes, this team has won a lot of one-score games, but this is not a flimsy Minnesota team that's never done anything in the playoffs. This is a team that went to the NFC Championship game and won last year and went to the Super Bowl and was 5 minutes away from winning the Super Bowl.
I look at it differently. I do not see last year's team as this year's team. We have their defensive tackle on our team now.
Right, and they replaced him with somebody who is as good, if not better.
Great, but my point is...
their D-line is as good as it was without Javon Hargrave.
An opinion.
Mine.
Fine. And
many's.
And I'm expressing mine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I think to call them this year's Minnesota Vikings is inflammatory. It's a hot take.
Great. Fine. Call it a hot take. Then I'm on fire.
No, you are.
I'm
waiting for the sprinklers to go on above you.
I've spent all morning and part of last night really, really looking at math, really looking at the way things have played out this year. And again, I want to state it up front. The Eagles are really good.
Yeah.
They're just not as good as you think they are.
Well, they're 10-1, but they might really be 10-2 or 9-2 or 8-3 based on games that went their way. Whatever, 7-4.
They've won every single close game.
Right.
Except for one. But that's kind of the point. Every game they've played almost is a close one.
Now, is that because they're lucky or is it because they're good? And that's something that the math can't really tell you. It's something that you have to determine for yourself with the eye test, because we've talked to people, and we talked to people this week who said Jalen Hurts is just clutch. And, you know, Kirk Cousins last year in Minnesota, they won 10 games by one score, and it turned out they got to the playoffs and they weren't that good. And I look at this Philadelphia team, and I think a little bit differently about how they are doing it And yeah, they beat Buffalo, and were they lucky? Sure. Were they clutch? Absolutely.
Yeah.
They withstood a field goal in overtime. They got the ball back, and they drove down. They scored a touchdown. And they marched it down Buffalo's throat at home. Josh Elliott kicked a 59-yarder in terrible conditions. Is that luck? That's skill to me. That's having a good kicker.
If you ask if they're lucky or good, there's only one that I can definitively say yes to, which is good. They're good.
Yeah, they're both lucky and good.
Who the hell would argue that the Eagles aren't good?
Right.
They're very, very good. And I know how difficult it is to have my point today and also not make it sound like I'm saying the Eagles aren't good. There's no argument there. The Eagles are good.
Yeah.
Hello.
Well, you called them Minnesota.
I said
they're a better version of
last year's Vikings, and last year's Vikings are good.
Last year's Vikings were a fraud. Last year's Vikings were
they were a fraud when compared to a 13-4 record.
Exactly. They were a fraud when compared to an actual real team.
Well, but it doesn't. See, here's what happens in sports. The Vikings were good last year. They weren't as good as 13-4.
Right.
They weren't an elite team.
You know what they were? They were adorable.
Well,
they were the Sacramento Kings.
No, see,
that's adorable.
That's different.
No, they were a regular season team that was really cute and fun and adorable. And by the way, they also have purple in their uniform.
Remember, adorable is sometimes
adorable
is kind of. Here's a little secret.
Yes, it's a backhanded compliment.
A little bit more about the fans than it is about the team.
Well, in the Vikings,
De'Aaron Fox. I don't look at De'Aaron. I mean, De'Aaron Fox. He is. Physically, De'Aaron, what a cutie. I mean,
You're
honestly.
saying Cousins is not adorable?
Different kind of adorable.
You like that?
I mean, listen.
And his ooh-wee?
I watch a lot of games with my lady. The lovely Christy will tell you, De'Aaron's adorable. He's cutie.
Yeah.
Okay, but adorable is more like, oh, we did it. Let's light a beam and get a beer. Yay.
That's the Vikings.
Exactly. So people in Wisconsin and Minnesota are always adorable. That little accent, it's incredibly adorable. But that's a completely different point. We do this in sports where we take the teams that are actually good, but they're not quite as good as the really good, and then we go, you're a fraud. Well, the Vikings were better than 85% of the league last year. Fact.
By record.
Yeah, no.
They weren't as good as the Giants when it mattered.
Yeah, not when it mattered. Not in that game.
And that's ultimately what football comes down to.
Yeah, but that's making it about one game, as we've learned.
Well, that's what football is. You don't get a series, you get the one piece.
No, I understand that, but that's that. It's just a little bit too black and white thinking for me.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Unless you're one of these people that believes whoever, and I remember a debate on Fox Sports Radio years ago one time that did come down to this. If you win in the end, are you by definition the best team?
Well, yes.
Or did you just win? Well, see, I would argue.
Does it matter, though? And
no.
That's my point.
The final take is it's irrelevant.
It's totally irrelevant.
The point is moot.
Did Eli Manning ever have the best team? No.
No. Correct. Good example.
And he's got two.
Exactly.
And he's going to the Hall of Fame because he has two.
So it's irrelevant. But if you want to go down that road, we can. And I think Golden State Warriors fans are some of the best ones to talk to. Do you believe that LeBron's Cavs were better than the 73-win Warriors? Nobody here is going to say yes to that, but they won. So it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
But if you can buy into the concept that the best team doesn't always win, then we can't simply go, well, Sunday we find out. Not necessarily.
No, Sunday doesn't really matter for January. Sunday doesn't matter at all.
I mean, it could, it might, but no, it's not the definitive. It's not the end-all, be-all.
Right.
But bottom line is this. If you want to remove the concept of they're a better version of last year's Vikings, go right ahead. But here's what I'll tell you. By my eye, by my study, by everything I've looked at, the Eagles are not the best team in football. Their record says they are, but I don't think they're as good as their record. So, I'm willing to wear that. I have no problem. You know this. Yeah. I have no problem with the phrase I was wrong. So I'm ready to do that on Monday, and I'm ready to do it in January if it goes that way. But all I can tell you is what is in my mind and my heart. They're not the best team. they're not even one of the 2 or 3 best teams, and the Niners are. That's my view. The Niners are better. Vegas agrees with me. The Niners are better. They've got better players. They've had better performances. Yes, they had a lull where they really screwed up.
Right.
They really screwed up. But, I just can't do that. I can't remove the journey, the stories, the things that happen to teams. I still don't even really know what happened to the Niners during those 3 weeks. Maybe we never will. It's just like our Wiggins conversation from last year.
I think it's pretty...
I don't know what the hell happened.
For me, it's pretty easy to see what happened.
What do you think happened?
Well, Cleveland was more physical than you, and you lost your left tackle, and you lost your wide receiver on the first play, which laminated play sheet, and you missed a kick that would have won the game.
Yep.
That's an L you probably shouldn't have had. Then Minnesota, Brock Purdy was slow to start, and you didn't have Trent Williams again, and Kirk Cousins was amazing, and you lost
Purdy
that
was
game.
Slow to start against Minnesota?
You had McCaffrey with the fumble.
Yeah.
And, I think Kirk Cousins was better than Brock Purdy.
I remember feeling like Brock Purdy was incredible for 3 quarters against Minnesota.
Right.
And then really bad.
And
I remember
Cincinnati
that's how people
was a scheduled
felt.
loss. As I told you before, that's a game that they were going to lose. I called it in July, and it came to pass in October. And it was schedule-wise, you had a team coming off a bye, and you were at the end of an 8-game run. So that, to me, was a game that you could look at and say, like last year in Atlanta. I said last year against Atlanta, it's a game you're probably going to lose because it's the second half of a 2-game road trip, and Atlanta was physical, and they beat you up. And you're not going to win all 17 games. Right. We know that. And I look at this game, and I look at Philadelphia on a shorter rest than the Niners, and I think that's a huge factor for San Francisco.
Might be.
Big.
Might be. I think we're learning this year that the rest index is maybe a bigger deal than we've really thought about before. I haven't really thought about it that much until this year when some of the data comes out or you look at it that way and teams' record when they've got more rest.
Yeah.
It's pretty fascinating. It's pretty fascinating.
Even if it's 3 days like this game.
Totally. But no, I am completely, I'm not unaware of how this is going to sound or how this is going to go. I'm ready for all the smoke today. I see you, Francois. I see you, dude. I see you all.
Dude is calling in?
I think it's hysterical, though. I think it's funny. Willard's a homer. Well, except that the Niners are a 3-point favorite on the road and the favorite to win the Super Bowl. Now, that to me is data. And that is also being run by people who have no emotional dog in the fight. What they have is billions of dollars on the line. Now, you can say, oh, they're just tapping in to public perception, and the Niners have a big fan base. Oh, the Eagles don't? The Eagles are flying below the radar the last couple of years. I don't see it that way. So that's fine. You can homer this and homer that all you want. But I will argue that the absolute most objective people in planet Earth are telling you that the Niners are better. Now, does it matter? I'll tell you how it matters, and this is why I can prove it's not a homer take. This puts more pressure on the 49ers. This is what leads to the word should. Hey, Niners, you should win this weekend. You should.
Well, you're saying they should also win the Super Bowl.
They should. Yes.
Therefore, you know what that makes it, right?
No.
Super Bowl or bust, Mark?
Incorrect take.
Super Bowl or bust.
Incorrect
if you're saying they should win the Super Bowl,
because I don't know.
Then what happens if they don't win the Super Bowl?
Because I don't know who's available. There's 1,000 things that can happen.
Super Bowl or bust.
No.
I'm Mark Willard.
Nope, sorry.
You're saying they should win the Super Bowl.
I think
you just said that.
If they are, as a roster,
healthy enough,
the team that they are today, yes. There is absolutely nobody in the NFL who should score more points than them in a football game, provided that the players who are active right now make it through the game and are ready to go. It doesn't always work that way.
Of course.
There's 2 things that could happen. A, guys could get hurt. B, people can underperform. Bad calls can be made.
Sure.
And I mean by a coach.
Right.
I don't mean by a ref.
No, of course.
Kyle
it's football,
could make a
so
bad
anything
call,
can happen to any
bad
team.
bounce, bad play, bad throw, bad everything. People underperform. People disappoint. Patrick Mahomes lost a Super Bowl, did y'all forget? And he's the best player. Okay?
He's the MVP.
Has been, yeah. Right. But for my money, the 49ers, as we sit here today, are the best team in football. If you want to call that a hot take, fire away. I don't think it is.
That's not a hot take.
It's not.
The hot take is you saying that Philadelphia is a better version of Minnesota. That's what the hot take is.
Here's
because I find that to be inflammatory.
Fine.
When you look at what Jalen Hurts has done in the regular season, what this team has done.
Great player. It's a great player.
Great team.
Yeah.
Great team. Defending NFC champion.
Well,
and for you to say that, yes,
no.
Are they not the defending NFC champion?
They are, but
they are. For you to say that they're a better version of Minnesota,
it's a different team, Dibs.
Is the hot take.
Wait a minute. When you look at Kansas City, do you look at them right now and go, I mean,
they're a different team.
That's the Super Bowl champ.
Philadelphia is very slightly different, and you could argue they're better.
I wouldn't, but okay.
You could argue that their defense is better.
Not by stats. They're not by right. Performance. They have not performed better.
But you look at a team that's 10-1, and you can diminish winning 10 of 11 if at your own peril. They've won 10 of 11 games, and I know that they've won 7 games by 1 score.
And the opponent has scored 23 or more than half the time.
Right.
That's happened to the Niners twice this year.
They've won 10 of those 11 times.
Right. And that's my point.
Yeah, that's my point.
They keep getting
you play to win the game.
But
we had Herm on this week.
But this has been an indicator every time sports has ever happened in our lives.
You sent that from Colin Cowherd, and it's fascinating.
If you keep winning all the tight games, the bubble usually bursts.
Right.
Usually. That's all I'm pointing out.
Right.
It's a true fact.
So Philadelphia can win their final 5 games or 6 games by 15 or more points, and then we'll think differently at the end of the year.
I agree. Yes.
Right.
I would. But the 49ers have given up 23 or more points twice all year, and one of them was when Sean McVegas tried to make it so.
Right.
Okay? The only other time was Cincinnati. That's it. It's happened to the Eagles in more than half their games. Washington, Sam Howell has scored north of 30 points twice on this football team.
Both losses.
So far be it from me to understand how the hell the 49er offense, by metrics, maybe the best in football, how the hell are they supposed to stop them? I don't think they will.
Right.
Now, maybe they will perform poorly, and maybe, just maybe, Dibs, I'm completely wrong.
You could be.
Ready for it, but I'm telling you what I feel today.
No, and I get that. And I don't think that the Eagles are going to win the game. I think the Niners will win the game. But the idea that...
You do? You said different 3 days ago.
No, I said I think it's going to be a low-scoring game.
No, you said the Eagles were going to win. You thought the Eagles would win.
Well, the more you look at it and the more you think about the 3 days of additional rest and you look at the conditions being more conducive to Brock Purdy being able to hold on to the football, I think it'll be a close game, and I think the Niners probably will win the game.
Okay.
They're favored by 3. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. If the Niners win, that's awesome for them. They're still a game behind Philadelphia. If Philadelphia wins and it's a 1-score game, are we going to rush to diminish the fact that they've now won 8 of 11 by 1 score?
No, it's not. Like, I'm not.
You look at the gauntlet of games that they've had.
Yeah.
And you yourself said 6 weeks ago that you all but guaranteed they'd have 2 losses by the time this game happened.
It's been incredible.
And they don't have 2 losses.
It's been incredible.
And the only game they did lose was a game that nobody thought they'd lose.
Correct.
We all thought that they would lose to Buffalo and/or Kansas City and all the other games they had between their bye and where we are now, and they still have 1 loss. And yet, now we're sitting here saying that they're just not a slightly better, but a better version of Minnesota.
No, we're not.
Even though they ran that gauntlet.
No, we're not. I am.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm just surprised by that.
That's fine. But
I'm surprised that you're not giving them the flowers that I thought you would have given them.
Oh, no.
When you said that they'd have 2 losses, now they don't.
I have been giving them flowers every week, all month long. You know that. They are fantastic. They're just not as good as the Niners. They're very good. They're very good. Remember, do not say that I said they're last year's Vikings. They're a better version of last year's Vikings.
Right.
But the point of that is not to say that they're a fraud. The point of that to say is they are the team this year that, in the end of games, has had the most things go their way. Every time it's close, they come away with a win. Do they get credit for that? Sure do. Is that sustainable? My opinion, no. My opinion. I think they're going to lose this week and next week.
So you don't think, and I'm just going to ask you this because the way this is leading, do you think that they're going to be in the NFC Championship game?
No.
All right. I love that. I love that take. That's a firm take.
I don't think the
That's
Niners...
a good, solid take.
I don't think the Niners and Eagles are playing again this year, so enjoy this one.
You think the Eagles lose Sunday, and they lose to Dallas. Mm-hmm. The Niners get the 1 seed, and then the Eagles will get the 2 or the 3, and they'll lose to Dallas. You don't think that the Eagles will be there in the conference championship game?
Correct.
It'll be the Niners at home against...
I don't know if it's going to go exactly the way you just said it because I don't even know what the seeds are yet.
Of course not.
Yeah.
But
I'm not convinced that they're winning the NFC East.
Wow. Yeah.
The Cowboys are only 2 games back, and they play them next week.
Yeah, and with a loss on Sunday and then a loss to Dallas.
If the Niners beat the Eagles and then Dallas at home beats the Eagles, they're tied.
Right.
I don't know that they're going to win the division.
Wow. I love it. I love the take.
I don't think it's even a crazy one.
I think it's crazy.
You do?
I do. I think it's a good firm take.
You think it's crazy that the Dallas Cowboys might win the division?
Yes. Yeah.
Why?
Because I'm not sold on Dallas, and I do think that Philadelphia is better than you're giving them credit for.
Maybe, but they're literally an underdog in both games.
Right.
So, and if they lose both of them,
as of right now,
yes.
If they beat the Niners, will they be underdog at Dallas?
Maybe, maybe not.
Right.
I don't know, especially after last night when Dallas gave up a truckload of points. but honestly, how can it be a crazy take that I'm saying the favorite is going to win 2 times in a row? It's not. I'm not saying I'm right, but it's not crazy.
It's not like
the idea of the Eagles losing
lock
Sunday.
Him up crazy. Yeah. I do think it's a little bit crazy.
Okay, all right.
To think that a 10-1 team is not going to win their division, I think it's bold. I mean, maybe crazy is the wrong word. It's a bold take.
There's a 9-3 team sitting right there next to them.
Sure,
that plays them next week.
Right,
and is favored
as of now.
As of now.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's it. Yeah.